How did Trump bully Colombia to take their criminals back? We're going to have a conversation with Taylor from LifeGoal Investments and talk about an exciting 18-hour news cycle that included all kinds of twists and turns. And the result is criminals are leaving the United States. It can only be seen as a good thing, but let's break down the soap opera. Taylor, what's going on, man?
This was the fastest trade war anyone has ever experienced. They think news flows quickly on Twitter and on social media these days, but it also flows well between president to president. This was an amazing turnaround, and this is something Trump is going to be hollering from the bell tower, saying, "Look what I can do! Look what my tariffs can do."
Yeah, this again is frankly a masterclass, and I would ask everybody to kind of look at this news cycle and realize that frankly we have more power than maybe we thought we've had, or we certainly have more power than we were willing to use before. So this is how it broke down to me. Kind of Sunday morning, again on X or Twitter, I see a post that basically says Colombia president refuses to accept the deportation plane, which had a bunch of Colombian criminals on it. So it is forced to turn around and head home. And, at that point, Trump gets involved and basically put out a tweet that said, "Unleash the dogs, immediate 25% tariff, this, that, the other thing with, just, there was like a laundry list.
Tariffs, all the above.
Just get them. Just seek the dogs. Yeah. Unacceptable. I am pissed. Your coffee's getting more expensive. Your flowers are getting more expensive." And that's how it started.
Yep. Then the president from Colombia comes right back over the top in short order and says 50% tariff on you, United States.
That's true.
That was the last I saw before I shut down yesterday. And then all hell broke loose and we got to the ideal resolve for what Trump wanted.
Yeah. So it's again, calling this a trade war is probably accurate because again, what happened in this little speck is likely what will happen in many others. So again, we do something, the country doesn't want it. Trump gets angry. Trump unleashes the dogs. All his people pile in to make it uncomfortable for Colombia. Colombia's president doesn't like being punched. Says, "All right, buddy, I'll punch you back. I'll go high. You go 25. I'll go 50." And then cooler heads prevail.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Colombia's leadership basically goes, "Do we really want to do this?" Because again, when you look at the kind of import-export ratio, there's a lot of places to buy coffee, and there's a lot of places to buy plants, and we don't really export a lot to Colombia.
Right. So right. There was no leverage. There was zero leverage on his side of the coin.
Yeah. Trump's got a full-on, sledgehammer, and you got a spoon.
Right. Totally. And now I think that this is going to embolden Trump to just continue exactly what he did here. Like, this was an awesome test case with a low risk outcome. And now he can just say, okay, let's kind of continue to move this on further and further. And his hope for sure is that the tariffs continue to work the way they just did. And as a country, we all have to hope for that.
Yeah. Because again, Trump was willing to make Colombian coffee beans and Colombian flowers more expensive.
Right.
But again, you have to step back and go, hey, is Colombian coffee beans and flowers more expensive, worth getting rid of criminals?
Right.
That are from Colombia? And I think the only answer is yes, because you guys could open your palate up to other coffee beans, right? There's a lot of great coffee out there. But again, we've got to get rid of these criminals who are here illegally. But I think the bigger picture is we're flexing our might,
totally.
Right? And Colombia really said, "Oh, you know what? This is probably not something that we want to anchor on. Let's take back the 200, the 500, the 1,000, whatever the number is. We'll whatever they'll do with them, put them in jail or whatever it is, and it's just not worth it."
even if you look at this and say, okay, this goes through, and all of a sudden we are paying more for coffee. All right.
Well, hold on. We're paying more for Colombian coffee.
Colombian coffee, fair, right? So, okay, we either, source it somewhere else, or we pay up and take a little bit of a hit as a consumer. Look at it on the other side. Like, we've now saved how many dollars in our state penitentiary system from now not housing however many of the criminals that were here and we were flipping the bill for.
Yeah. Again, and to your point, this is what I've always thought about tariffs is, again, Trump is going to use them, and all the other lists. I wish I would have saved the list, because it was like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it was like, God have mercy, right?
The art of the deal. Take them from way out here in crazy land and maybe walk a little bit of it back.
Yeah. Again, it definitely art of the deal stuff. If you haven't read the book, read the book. It's just total New York real estate negotiation.
Right.
But again, it's net positive. And again, it was resolved in 18 hours.
Right. So full disclosure, I am not as optimistic on trade or on tariffs as you are. I think that this was the rosiest outcome that can come. And hopefully, listen,
hard to be better.
I want to be wrong. I want this thing to roll out and have the U.S. only be a net beneficiary of every tariff that we place on everybody. But listen, taking my coffee off the table and my Valentine's Day flowers is a little different than what we take from some other countries, which I think is kind of the big point there.
Well, again, that's why it is my belief that there's what I think a lot of people miss is they see the bluster, but they don't see the plan. Right? I think he's playing a lot more 3D, 4D chess, whatever that looks like, than people give him credit for, because all they hear is the bluster.
Right.
And they don't step back and go, how is that the first move of several moves?
Right.
And
no, I get what you're saying there. The other side of it is just, to your point, it's a black box. You don't know exactly what's going on there. And the only thing that we can point to is the last time Trump was in office. And I just don't think the tariffs played out quite as swimmingly well as the market thinks they're going to play out this time. Here's a really good point. I was just listening to Bob Elliott. He used to be the CIO or something of that manner for Bridgewater Capital, which is the largest hedge fund in the world. Hedge fund. He did an analysis that measured up trade winners and losers from a stock perspective. There has been literally no discrepancy between the performance in both of them. And maybe you look at that and you go, okay, cool. Like, the market's saying that there's going to be no impact of any of this. I look at that and say, why in the hell would you buy a loser on something that could happen in trade if there's been no negative impact? There's, the pricing in of it is just nothing happens. What happens if there is something that actually takes place and there's no downside risk priced into the market at this point?
So play that out. Give me a stock or a sector.
Yeah. So like Walmart imports everything
from Jeff.
So if we have an issue with someone where we place a tariff, they reciprocate with a tariff, and not even the reciprocation of the tariff is the important part. We place the tariff, causing the goods coming in that get sold at Walmart at the end of the day, causing them to be more expensive, likely taking a hit on sales, and Walmart has seen zero impact on the stock. The market is a future discounting mechanism. If we can see something coming in the future where there's either it will happen or there's a risk of it happening, some of that should begin getting priced into the stock. But what the market's saying right now is, okay, nothing's going to happen. But you look at it from the other person's perspective. The Mexican peso has been eviscerated on this trade battle, rhetoric. So why is it getting priced on one side, but it's not getting priced on the other side? That's what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, lots to look at there. Again, I think I think calling this a trade war with Colombia is fair. It's accurate. It also happens to be, to your point, one of the shortest trade wars ever. Again, I do agree with you. It's the most rosy outcome, seeing it solved in a single day news cycle. Can you imagine being an analyst, writing up, getting your article written in the morning and it's already outdated by the afternoon?
I was that idiot. I wrote up an analysis on this.
Well, throw that one away.
Yep. And admittedly, what kind of my tagline or my slogan on this was going to be is, tariffs and Trump are a wild card. Because you've heard China, you've heard Canada, you've heard Mexico. You have heard nothing of Colombia. And who's the first one to get it? Colombia out of left field, because they wouldn't take our deportation back. And I'm not saying that it's not the right decision. Clearly, this worked out perfectly. It was exactly the right decision on everything down to the screws. But did we know it would play out that way? I don't, maybe with Colombia we did, because they didn't have any leverage.
Yeah,
but
they had a spoon.
Who's coming next? Who upsets us next? And is there leverage on the other side of the table? And maybe he's smart enough to know where there's leverage and where there's not leverage. And you bully the hell out of someone that doesn't have any leverage, and you take a little bit more of a soft tactic with those that do have some leverage. And I would like to think that that's the case, but that is totally up for debate at this point.
Yeah. Well, again, I am willing to bet that this is not the last time tariffs are used.
Oh, no. Well, when is February 1st? Is that this week or next week? Because they're getting it apparently on February 1st. Mexico and Canada, at least. And I think China's right there close behind them.
Well, let's talk about let's talk about Canada and Mexico. Because as I read the threat, I think it's a 25% tariff was the threat. This was a week ago or so. It was all about basically their governments helping protect the border, right? Fentanyl and all of that. And I believe Mexico has already sent military to their border. So again, I think this threat of tariff is already in the wash, and it's not happening.
Well, and on the other side, like Trudeau's already washed out. So maybe,
he's gone.
Maybe something worked there. But what I don't understand is just, and maybe this is like, it's hard to do things differently, but like the amount of interactions with illegal immigration or drugs or whatever is something like, I've seen stats on that. I'm coming off the cuff here, so don't quote me on this. 40x the southern border versus what it is on the northern border. And we're going to punish them homogeneously, homogeneously rather, where they're both going to get the same 25% tariff. Maybe it's harder to just parse things out, and it's more effective just to do it and get it taken care of.
I think again, play the chess moves. Again, I think by putting the big threat on the table, he is basically saying, hey, I have two borders. I want them both protected equally. And again, you're absolutely right. Whatever comes over the Mexico border is likely 100x what comes through Canada. Agreed?
Right.
Thus, I suspect Canada has to do 1/100th of what Mexico does.
Right. Okay. So maybe to your point, maybe it all works out fair and proportionately, where they're like, hey, we'll have to spend this much money. Y'all have to spend this much money.
Yeah. I'll send 100 Mounties to the Canada border, where you got to send 10,000
federales.
Soldiers. Right. Federales. Thank you. Yeah. So again, I think that's the chess move of tariffs is I think it's always been an effective tool. I just think people have been afraid to use it because they play it out to, inflation, this, that, the other. But when you're the big boy on the block.
Well, I would argue it has not always been an effective tool. It literally caused the Great Depression. Tariffs caused the Great Depression.
Yeah. What was it?
Smoot-Hawley.
Smoot-Hawley.
Smoot-Hawley. Yeah. They said, listen, we can see the economy slowing. Now, granted, the tide was already shifting from the roaring 20s to things slowing down, but the infinite wisdom of two senators, Reed Smoot and something Hawley, they said, listen, we can see this is going to punish American farmers. So let's slap tariffs on everyone. Global trade declined 65% within 4 years of the enactment of Smoot-Hawley, and it literally led to the Great Depression. So I actually struggle to find a point where you can go, tariffs worked here. I don't know where that is historically.
Did you see Colombia?
You're an ass. My short-term memory is lost.
Not good. Oh man, you are amazing. I love what you do on TikTok. These 60-second clips are amazing. If somebody wanted to reach out to LifeGoal Investments, where do we send them?
Yeah, I typically send people directly to TikTok and Instagram, at LifeGoal Investments. That's where you're going to get an idea of whether you like us, our services. We run a wealth management business, so we do financial planning and investment portfolios for folks. But you got to go there and see if you like us, you like our style, you like what we say. Otherwise, this link down here doesn't mean much.
You are who you are. That's what I love.
Oh, that's it. You get it. It's black and white.
Man, I appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.